the end needs to act as one. Africa needs to respond with one voice. The global architecture has changed. And some would even say the rules-based architecture of the world has, in a way, collapsed. And it therefore calls on regional bodies such as the AU to consolidate clear positions on how we as Africans make interventions in this changed world when it comes, for instance, to issues such as trade, to issues such as how our natural endowments, which is minerals and critical minerals and rare earths that are so needed by your more developed economies, should be dealt with. Because what we should be avoiding is a new form of colonialism, where those economies will now begin to target the minerals that they have. It is now time for Africa to do business on its own terms and to make sure that the decisions that we engendered at the G20 on how we treat our endowments, like particularly critical minerals, should be dealt with. It should no longer be a case where rock, soil, and dust is exported out of Africa without being beneficiated. Now, we have leverage, and as Africa, we must use that leverage. And without enforcing ourselves or imposing ourselves, we need to be saying, we need to act as one, collectively, and deal with the wealth that we have to the advantage of Africans. Hitherto, it has not been totally to our advantage. Other countries outside the African locale have gained great advantage. Now, the geopolitical situation, having changed as it is, requires us to be smarter and wiser and use the leverage that we have without being arrogant, without seeking to impose ourselves. And this is the time when, as Africans, we must act together. As you well know, institutional reforms are not an event. They are a process. Every reform process does take its own time. Sometimes there are detours, sometimes there are stops and starts. But the important thing is that the reform process in the AU is going ahead. And the various heads of state are quite committed to ensuring that the reforms do proceed so as to make the AU much more effective, much more efficient in terms of the decisions that it has taken to be implemented. So our focus, therefore, should be the way in which the reforms are proceeding ahead. And of course, everybody wants the reforms to speed up, but some do take some time. But we are moving ahead with the reforms, and the AU is becoming sharper, and it's becoming more modernized in the way that it works. And when you look at the way that the Assembly takes decisions, you can see that change is taking place, and that's what we need to be pleased about. Now, the countries such as South Sudan, Sudan, and the DRC are countries that are facing enormous challenges. We've just come out of a meeting now where we were discussing South Sudan, and we're pleased to say that the C5 committee of the AU, supported by IGAD, has just met and has taken decisions that we do believe will take the country forward. A clear roadmap is now being articulated. It's been said by the C5 and indeed IGAD that the elections in South Sudan should proceed. They should no longer be postponed, and that in itself is progress. And that there should be a ceasefire, and that the detainees should be released, and that the preparations for elections should now get underway with greater earnest. But what is important is that the AU, the C5, and the UN will support the process of preparing the country for elections, and they'll support South Sudan. Good thing is that President Salva Kiir himself was here together with his ministers, and they are all committed to a dialogue process that will lead to the consolidation of a consensus. And the revitalization agreement that they reached, agreed to, is going to be the guide in everything that they do. So I now emerge from this meeting confident that we will see the resolution of the challenges of South Sudan. Sudan in itself remains a challenge, and we've called on all parties to cease hostilities and to sit down and find a way of getting to a resolution. And the DRC process is also proceeding. There are quite a number of peace initiatives that are taking place, and we want all those to be consolidated, and we do believe that we will see a clear way forward with that as well.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the US will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HT videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.